Under more, I guess, huh? Yeah.
Okay, there we are. Great. Okay, John, I want to welcome you because I have been learning so much from your program. And in fact, I spent something like last Sunday, all Sunday, just going through your program and learning all about using Pinterest for marketing, books. And
Right.
I've been an author myself for about 9, 10 years, and never even thought that I could use Pinterest to sell books on. So I was so excited to come across your program, and so I would love it. Let's just get right into it. Like,
Right.
how do people sell books on Pinterest?
Well, they create good content. That's what people want on Pinterest. It's not just pretty pictures, although that's one of the things, but they're not going to go to a website unless they've already been given a taste of the content that would drive them to go to the website to find out more. So an author on Pinterest is basically working to get people to taste or sample what they have to offer so that then they will click through to the website where they'll find out more and have, of course, an opportunity to buy the book. And that's really what you're trying to do is drive traffic to your website so that you can ultimately get people interested in your book. So a lot of the content you share is going to be related to your book in some way. For example, I've been working with an author who's wrote a novel. It's sort of a climate catastrophe novel. And so he created, with my help, we worked together on it, about 10 infographics, typographics on climate change in different ways. You know, what is the danger, et cetera, et cetera. And so we created those and we drove a lot of traffic to his website as a result of those. In fact, he's still getting traffic from them.
So
And
basically, what you do with the typographic, from what I understand,
right.
is you go onto Canva and you create, like a little graphic that talks about different tips that are related to your book. And then
Yeah,
you go
so
and you upload that typographic into Pinterest with a link to your book on Amazon, right? Or on your
well,
website.
I prefer again going to driving them to your website so you can capture their email because then you know this is somebody that's interested in the topic. And as you know, in my experience, most authors have like 10 books in them. They don't have just one.
I know exactly. That's what I'm finding too with the people I'm coaching. It's never just
Yeah.
one book.
So, you can even, I even tell some authors, give away your first book, especially if it's a novel because you're not well known. And that gives people a chance to sample you. And if they like that, they're going to be begging you to finish the next novel.
So what about
And
doing it on Kindle? Would it be good to the send the book to Kindle or the link to Kindle so that they can get it for
no,
like 99 cents or something like that? And then,
no, I always do the two-step. I really strongly recommend you send them to your website where you get a chance to sell them more on the book or sell them on whatever action you want them to take. And hopefully you get them to sign up for your newsletter to find out more. But that page that you send them to is going to always be better than just one simple graphic in terms of driving a buying decision.
you
So
know,
I always like to send them to the website where I have the graphic on that page and I'm talking about something about the value of the book, either the entertainment value, the information, the inspiration value, whatever it might be, so that they will actually go, wow, that sounds interesting. And then you have a link to Amazon or wherever else you want to send them to buy your book. I
right.
mean, obviously, we all make more money if we send them directly to our own website to buy the book.
Well, the
Uh,
other big thing about sending it to our website is because if we send them directly to Amazon, we don't get the email. So we don't know who's actually bought the book. So it makes
right.
better sense to send it to the website, like you said. That way we can capture their email and then we can have them as a client for life.
Right. And then you can send them again to Amazon at that point if you want to. And there's good reasons to send traffic to Amazon because Amazon's the big kahuna in terms of, um, legitimacy in terms of a book being legitimate or not legitimate and so on. If it's selling on Amazon, then it's got a legitimacy that it wouldn't have if all you're doing is sending people to your website and, taking the order. So you get the order, you get the money, but you don't get the legitimacy.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit because we just
Okay.
like dived right into it.
Boom,
But
boom.
okay, I know exactly, and I love that because I love pure content. So let's also show like why should we sell on Pinterest? Because that's the big question. Whenever I ask, some of my speaker friends, did you know that you can sell books on Pinterest? And they're like, I
Yeah.
don't get it. So why would you sell them? Like, why would you focus on Pinterest as being one of your marketing platforms instead of like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram?
Because Pinterest is really designed to sell things. Pinterest really encourages people to actually click to go to another website. Try that on Facebook. I mean, it's almost impossible unless you pay them. And then you can sometimes get it. But even then, they want you to try to sell the people on Facebook to buy your book or something. Twitter, I have never found to be a very effective sales tool. I still do it. Everything that I create for Pinterest, I also share on Facebook and, on Twitter and so on, because you never know where you might, catch the interest of somebody. But Pinterest has been the one that's really drives traffic for me in a way that Facebook and Twitter and Instagram or LinkedIn, they don't send the same kind of traffic. And that traffic is important, not only because it gives people a chance to find your website and find your book, but it also really increases the visibility of your website for the search engines. Google really likes Pinterest.
One of the things that I also loved about what you say in your program is that the shelf life of a Twitter tweet is like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
On Facebook, it's like an hour and a half. And same with like probably Instagram is probably even less. But the thing is, if you don't catch your client or your potential client when they're on at that time, you've lost them. Whereas Pinterest, you go, you pin it, you save it to a board, and you'll have it forever. And
And it
that's one
and
of the
it
things I
keeps
loved learning about in your program. It's like, oh, I get it. I get it.
and it really, I mean, one of the questions I get from people is, well, is there a special time to post on Pinterest? And I go, it doesn't matter because the way Pinterest works, your pin's going to be seen by people that love what you're doing, regardless of when you pin it. And the thing is that I get more traffic and more repins and shares of my pins uh, weeks later than the day that I do it, and it accumulates. So it really doesn't matter when you pin. What matters mainly is, are you sharing content that the people who might buy your book would be interested in? And so, in the course I teach, that the two main ways that I have found is the quote graphic, where you share a quote related to your topic. It doesn't have to be from you or from your book. It can be any quote that's related in some way, so that if people look at that quote or if they repin it, that means that they're probably interested in that topic or that attitude.
Right.
And I'm much more likely to click through to your website. And that's what you want.
I
You had
love that
something,
because I'm always sharing quotes on Facebook.
right,
Always. Right. And it's like, well, how come, I'm not creating my own quotes? Right.
right.
So that was one of the things that I loved about your program is you actually walk people through going into Canva, finding the quote, finding the picture, putting it all together, and then putting it on Pinterest, linking it to your book or to whatever your blog even,
Yeah,
right? Like that's really important too. You can link it to your blog and then send people to your blog, which also has your book or your whatever you want to market.
right,
Can
right.
you also talk about groups? Because that was something else that I learned about your program that I had no idea about. was that there's actually groups on Pinterest and how you can use
Basically,
groups to market your books.
well, there's two ways you can use groups. One is you can create your own group and invite friends to pin with you in that group. What it does is it makes that group or board is basically a board on Pinterest, and you can create as many boards as you want, basically, more than anybody else would normally do anyway. And the neat thing is that once you create a board, you can invite other friends to pin on that board with you. And that's a really neat way for authors to work with other authors to expose each other and their books to each other's audiences, because everybody who joins that group board, your board shows up on their profile as well. So that it multiplies how many people can, maybe see what you have to offer. So one way is to create your own board and invite people to start pinning on it. It's really a neat way to work with other authors, especially like-minded authors or people writing in the same field as you. The second thing you can do is you can join group boards that are already out there that other people have created. Some of these group boards have 1 million people following
Oh my
them.
God. I was blown away by some of the boards that you were showing in the video. It's like, oh
Yeah.
my God, this is crazy. Like the
Yeah,
group board.
and a lot of them are very open to having new contributors. Because the reality is, what happens is that people get excited, they join a new board and they'll start pinning to it, and then 2, 3 weeks later, they forgot, and they don't pin as much. And so you want new blood. So if you have a group board and somebody asks to join, you're going to normally say yes.
Right.
Because that just gets your board better known, gets you better known. More likely that more people will follow you on Pinterest, and more likely that Pinterest will, on its own, using its algorithms, showcase your pin to other people that are like-minded. So there's a lot of reasons to want to join a group board um, and pin to them on a regular basis. So I've created my own group boards, but I've also joined other group boards that I thought might be worthwhile in terms of exploring a particular audience that I wanted to reach.
Are you still there, John? Are you frozen?
I'm not frozen. I can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay,
Well,
we
I
can keep
might be
talking.
frozen. I don't know.
No, no, you're not frozen
It's
anymore.
certainly cold outside.
Does
It looks like you're frozen.
it? Okay, there we go.
Oh,
I think we're
you
back.
moved.
Great. Okay, so I've got a beginning author. They want to launch their book. What would you recommend the steps that they take?
Oh, you're frozen again.
Oh, are you there? Okay. Can you hear me now?
One of the nice things, in terms of, Pinterest is, right now, I have about 30,000 followers, and actually how many followers you have on Pinterest isn't really as important as it used to be. Because the way Pinterest is working now, what's really important is the content you create. And does it interest other people? And if it does, if other people start repinning it, Pinterest will say, well, this is a significant pin. We should be showcasing it to other people that like this topic. And that's really how I've, generated so much interest. And I get, right now, I have 1.6 million people on Pinterest seeing something that I've created every month.
Oh my God, that's incredible. 1.6
And so
million.
that's nice. It really does make a difference. And, one of the things I do with the people that join the course is that they showcase a pin to me that they've pinned onto Pinterest. If I like it, I'm going to repin it to my audience. So you get that same 30,000 followers, the 1.6 million people that, you know, see my stuff every month on Pinterest, and you get a chance to join in on that.
That's so sweet because I only
Are
have
you
100
unfrozen yet?
followers on my Pinterest.
You still seem frozen. Uh, but anyway, I'm hoping that this is still recording and that I'm live and unfrozen. so that people can benefit from it. And the other thing, we talked about quote graphics, but I highly recommend doing typographics, where you do anywhere from 5 to 10, maybe even 15 tips on how to do something. So if you're writing a nonfiction book, it might be, 10 ways to build a business or start a business. But if it's a novel, and you got a romance novel, and gosh, at least 50% of all novels are romance novels, well, you should create boards about romantic dates, romantic dinners, how to cook romantically, um, and 5 or 10 boards on romance, and then share typographics about that. 5 ways to have a romantic dinner on a Wednesday. Compared to say the weekend or something like that, and that and then, of course, you have your book cover at the bottom of that typographic, so that people, when they read the typographic and they share it, there's also a mention of your book, a romance novel. People interested in romance almost universally are interested in romance novels.
Yeah, I love it. I love the ideas that you put out there. You really help me expand my thought about how I could market my books. So
And
I
one
loved
of,
it.
one of the things I did, for the course that we sell, is I've created templates for PowerPoint. So it makes it really easy to create a typographic or a quote graphic, because all you have to do is copy one of the examples that I've created and then put in your content and your book cover, and boom, in 5 minutes you have a graphic, and it's a no-brainer graphic. You don't have to think about it.
I
And
did that. I don't know if you saw on Facebook, but I took one of the templates that you did of a speaker, and it was just the one side of her face, and then, her name, and then if you were looking, want to
oh
hire me for
yes, I
speaking
did see
engagements.
that. Yes.
Yeah. And so when I put it on Facebook, all of a sudden my Facebook went nuts. I had like 30 or 40 people sharing it. And then I also gave it to my agent, and I
Oh,
put
cool.
their website on the bottom so that they could use it to promote me in their
Okay,
materials, because they're always looking for things and ways that they can promote me,
that's
right?
fantastic.
And the
Yes.
graphic was just fantastic. And yeah, so thank you. I mean, I'm really really loving your program. I seriously, like, I thought I knew Pinterest. I didn't know nothing about Pinterest. When I
No,
took your course, I was like, oh, it's
boy,
incredible.
I've seen other people teach Pinterest courses, and I'm going, like this one Pinterest course I saw, they were recommending that you pin your book cover over and over again, and I'm going, nobody's interested in book covers. They're interested in, good quotes and good tips and things like that. And that's what will be shared. Now, you can always sneak your book cover into that graphic, but to pin just a book cover, you're not going to get any shares. You're not going to get much interest, and Pinterest isn't going to promote it. I
I know, and
mean,
when I talk to some of my clients, because I coach people on writing their books and being speakers, and a lot of times what you see on Facebook is people will just say, "Buy my book. Today's my launch day," and
yeah,
then they get upset because people don't buy their book. So I'm always saying to them, "What's in it for them to buy your book?"
yeah,
So
and
when I did my 1,000 tips for teenager book, what I did is I did like an infographic, with the author's picture, and then
right,
their tip, and then the website on the bottom, and said, okay, now go buy the book, right? Because now they know what's in it for them.
right. And the thing is that with your book, that's 100 graphics you could create.
Oh yeah, and I did, and I actually did put them on Pinterest too.
And over time they get discovered, and something like that I think would, I'm sure you probably got a lot of repins or shares and so on. And that's, people on Pinterest really like content. And the trouble with the standard infographic, really complicated, multiple things on the graphic and all that, is that it's really hard to read on a smartphone. And 80% to 90% of social media is accessed through smartphones. But when you create a typographic like what I create, it's simply the tips. and then a nice little graphic of a book or something like that at the bottom. So very simple, so that it's easy to read on a smartphone by just simply scrolling through. You don't have to make it larger. You don't have to scroll back and forth. And I mean, if you've ever watched people use their smartphones, or you ever watch yourself use your own, you know that nobody wants to work when they're doing the smartphone. They want it simple, easy, and boom. If they like what the typographic is, they'll click through to your website. Now, that means that your website also has to be smartphone compatible.
Right.
And that just
Absolutely.
means that it adjusts to whatever the screen is. And most WordPress themes nowadays, and most websites created by authors, are based on WordPress themes. Most of them now automatically adjust based on what kind of, whether it's an iPhone, an iPad, or a computer that's accessing your website, and they automatically change it.
Right.
And that makes it really, really neat, because that means that people can look at your content. If they like the book, they can buy it. And obviously, if they're accessing your social media through a Kindle or an iPad, boom, they can buy your ebook and be reading it within 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. I mean, 1 or 2 minutes.
Right. Okay, so you've got a brand new author sitting in front of you. They want to launch their book. What are 3 tips that you would give them?
The first tip would be start making friends. In fact, I would say, as you're writing the book, start making friends. That means join other groups, join discussion groups on Facebook or LinkedIn or so on, so that, and commenting on other people's work. So if you're writing a romance novel and you love, you've got your own four or five favorite romance novelists, start interacting with them right away, because then you have a chance that when your book is finished and you finished writing it, you can approach them because you're already, in some sense, a friend of theirs. I have what I call Facebook stalkers. They like everything I do on Facebook. And I like that. It's nice having people that appreciate what I'm doing. Um, but of course, my wife says nobody should like everything you're doing. But that's fine. Uh, but the thing is that I notice those people, and if they were to come to me at some point and say, "Would you look at my book? Would you, answer a couple of questions for me?" Something like that. I'm going to say sure, because they've already built a relationship with me. It's not like bosom buddies, but it's a relationship. I have many, many social media friends that I've never met.
My son
Uh,
calls them finger friends.
yeah. Well, that's a good way to say it.
He's only
And
16, so he calls them, oh, mom, they're just finger friends. But no, I've actually met some of them.
yeah, but they make a difference. Even those people, they appreciate you. They like what you're doing. They share it with it. They often share it or repin it or things like that. And that's really the basis of starting the word of mouth for your book. And 80% of all books are sold by word of mouth. So
Absolutely.
if you can get other people talking about your book, and that's why you want to create friends as you're writing the book. Or let's say, as you said, if I'm facing a new author, they were dumb enough to finish the book before creating any friends, well, start then.
Right.
Start wherever you are, because it doesn't matter. A book lives forever. So, you don't have to feel like, well, I got to sell everything in the first 2 weeks or I'm a failure. Well, the reality is that there's very few books that, sell everything in the first 2 weeks and then that's it. New York Times bestsellers, some of those, they sell everything in the first 2 weeks and boy, they disappear like magic. But a good self-published novel or nonfiction book is going to live forever because you as the author love the book. And all you have to do is find 5 or 6 other people who love it as much as you do, and they will pass the word along.
That's so awesome.
I
Okay.
mean,
So what's tip number 2?
tip number 2 is start to create relationships with influencers.
Okay.
That means people that have websites, blogs, groups, anything like that, that's targeting your audience, and start to get to know them. You know, one of the Tim Ferriss, who wrote the 4 Hour Work Week, when the week, you know, the year before he published his book, he went to all these internet marketing conferences, and what he did is he said, "Hey, can I buy you a beer? Can I take you out to dinner?" And then he talked to people, and the first question out of his mouth was, "What can I do for you?"
What can I do for you? Yeah.
And then, you know, when he was ready to launch the book, there were all these people that he had made friends with. They knew him by face and so on and so forth. And they were willing to, and of course, a lot of these were internet marketers. So of course they all believe in a 4 hour work week. You know,
Right.
so his book was perfectly targeted to them. And his book became a bestseller with I think he got one media appearance during that week, but all the rest of it was internet generated, word of mouth, and so on. And his book became a bestseller that week. And then, of course, he picked up all kinds of media appearances.
Well, and that
So,
book is also perfect for coming up with tips
oh yeah, I mean,
with a graphic and then a link
oh, he could
to
have
the
done
book,
so
right?
many things with that, you know, in terms of marketing. And now, you know, you said you wanted the third tip, so I'm going to go big picture.
Okay, big picture. I want
National TV.
it.
National TV is hungry for new content providers, talking heads. They're hungry for it. I mean, look at the talking heads they have now. And I mean, if you don't believe you can do better than the talking heads they have, well, then you shouldn't have written the book. But they're hungry for people that'll give an opinion, whatever it might be. And again, like if you wrote a romance novel, it's not that you can't get on national TV, because what was one of the big stories last week?
uh,
Megxit.
Kobe Bryant.
Yes, and his family, his daughter, and so on, but also Megxit. That was, what's her name? Meghan Markle.
Oh yeah,
And
Meghan Markle. Yeah, she's getting a lot of publicity right now too.
yeah, and you know, and they split from the royal family. So it's all about romance. It's about a relationship and how they wanted to really nurture their relationship. And so a romance novelist would be a perfect talking head for that story. But I bet you not one romance novel approached a national TV show when that happened.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
But
I
they
can see
could
it.
have. And
Yep.
they could have gotten on because they could have done a pitch that would have said, look, I can tell them exactly how to, you know, break away from the royal family and come in and live with us commoners and maintain their romance. And then you give them a couple pitch tips of what you might say. Again, you have to create sound bites because you have to remember you probably have 20 seconds on a national TV show. But if you create one sound bite that people remember, it'll get passed on and on and on. And your name and your book title will go with that.
Great. Excellent.
So I
Yeah.
want people to really think, even if they're a first time author, national TV is the major mass media out there, and it really has a bigger impact than magazines, newspapers, anything on the internet. National TV, you should believe that you can do it. All you have to do is target 5 to 10 of the major shows that you probably watch already, and you just contact them. You can contact them primarily through their website. A lot of shows will actually say, hey, here's how to give us a tip and things like that. And then you send them a tip. I mean, I did this when David Letterman was on. You know, he was always famous for the top 10 list.
Right.
And
Oh yeah, the
so
top 10 list that he always did on his shows. Yeah.
yeah, and so I did a top 10 list of, well, I can't remember what it was about right now, but I did it in his style. So they were funny and so on. I sent it to the show hoping I would get on. It didn't work, you know, but you never know. I mean, I had Johnny Carson pick up something of my content at one point, you know,
Hey,
so
that's just as good.
yeah, I mean, and then there's so many shows out there nowadays that even if you don't get in one of the big ones, there are so many niche oriented shows. There's Netflix shows, there's Hulu shows, uh, you know, so there's lots of opportunity to reach out to the national TV shows with a pitch for what you can say about something. And again, I usually like to try to tie it into an ongoing trend, or again, something newsworthy that's just happening, like you said, Kobe Bryant or Meghan Markle. Those are major stories that you could have tied into anything having to do with relationships.
Right.
Um,
Now I'm
and
going to add two more tips.
all
So
right,
one is, of course, what we've been talking about is create infographics or typographics of the content that's in your book. And it's not like you have to create brand new content. You just take
no,
tips out of your book or
right,
quotes out of your book and then make a graphic with them. And the second tip is to get involved in your program. So that I
well,
think
thanks.
is an excellent tip because, like I said, I've been on Pinterest since the beginning, and I didn't really know it until I took your program. And so I just love how it's like A to Z. It's like everything. Like you don't miss anything in your program, which I think is so awesome.
Yeah,
Sometimes people will create a program and then they kind of leave you hanging, and then you
yeah.
don't know what to do next. But
Right.
that's what
So
I found with
we
your
tried to
program.
cover everything, and we
Yeah.
tried to make it easy. The one thing I haven't done yet, and I need to do at some point, is a lesson on how to advertise on Pinterest. Because
Oh,
Pinterest
yes.
advertising, can be effective, but I like free. So,
I do too. And that's one of the things that I promote when I do my programs is how you can publish a book for pretty much next to free.
right.
So
And
that's why I love having free marketing, and that's something that I also promote is how I've made so much money on Facebook for free. I really
and the
should be paying for it. Right?
Yeah, and the neat thing is that the content you share on one social network is usually easily shareable on other social networks. That's one reason, the typographics are, tall and thin, and they're really designed to make use of the way that Pinterest presents information. If you pin the same graphic to Facebook, people are only going to see part of it, and you have no control over what part they see. You know,
Right.
so it's in the middle usually somewhere, which isn't always the best place. But so I've been doing a lot of quote graphics square, because square is almost works on almost every social network.
Right.
Um, and so I'll create a quote graphic. And again, I have templates for them for the PowerPoint, so that it's really easy to create. I mean, I'm lazy, and once I found out how incredibly capable PowerPoint was as a graphic program, and I already had it, so boom, I started creating templates that made it really easy to create new content over and over again using the content I've already created for my books.
That's right. So that's so super awesome. So, John, I want to thank
Yeah,
you for
yeah.
doing this webinar with me. And I'll give everybody the link so that they can get involved in your program and learn more about you.
Okay,
And
that'd be
like I
great.
said, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. And so that's why I wanted to have you on this because, authors need more ways to market their books. And, we tend to just put stuff on social media and hope it works. But
I'll give you one last tip.
okay, great.
Don't be afraid of other authors.
Oh, that's a great tip.
Actually work with them. I see so many authors, they won't tell you what their book is about because they're afraid you're still the idea. Well, I mean, that's just silly. And the thing is that working with other authors, you multiply each other's effects and you get much better results. And if you're off there in the wilderness calling, hey, buy my book, and nobody sees you. But if there are 10 of you together doing things and supporting each other, boy, the effect, it can be magical. And that's what you want. You really,
Exactly.
and you'll discover each other. And I mean, some of my best friends are people I met because they were authors.
Right.
And, so I really like that I can have those kind of friends, support them, and I know they'll support me. I mean, for word of mouth, Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen have sold thousands and thousands and thousands of my book because they used it themselves to market the first chicken soup for the soul.
That's
And,
awesome.
so I recognize the value that's already been donated to me in a sense because I found friends that would talk and share my book. And so I try to do the same for other authors.
Great.
But, don't ask me to do it if you haven't created a relationship with me yet.
Right. Well,
You
it's all
know,
about
if the
collaboration.
first thing you do is say, will you sell my book for me? I'm going to delete it because you haven't created a relationship. I don't know you.
Exactly.
So your first job is to like some of the things I do, comment on some of the things I do, and start to create a relationship. Then when you ask me, I'll say, sure, I'd be happy to.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much,
You still
John.
there? Or did you freeze again?
I know. I think I froze again.
Yeah.
So thank you very much,
It's a good
John.
look, though.
Yeah.
So I think that was about the amount of time you wanted me to spend. Um, so